All right. So in this week's Torah portion, in the last couple of weeks, we've been reading about the Exodus. Big story. The Jews start off as a nation. They're enslaved. And with the whole drama, Moses goes, gets the plagues going, and the Jews are finally freed. And this week, they actually split the sea. They go out. So the message of leaving Egypt is breaking boundaries, right? The Hebrew word for Mitzrayim, the Hebrew word for Egypt is Mitzrayim, comes from the root word mitzar, which means to be in a tight spot.
Yes.
So
breaking out of it.
Breaking out of it. So it's not just breaking out of, Pharaoh out there, but there's also the self-imposed comfort zones we get into, these routines we get into, and this is the way I do it, and this is the way I have to do it, and then I guess the message of breaking out of Egypt is to break that a little bit, push yourself a little bit, go get out of your comfort zone, do something a little bigger, become bigger than yourself. Anyway, so you got something on that you want to share? Go for it.
So it's like breaking out of your comfort zone.
Right.
So when you say that, you're thinking of like usually routine, but it could also mean sort of like...
Yeah.
It could also mean...
It's interruption from my son.
So...
So besides, there's routine, but then there's also...
Yeah, so there's routine, and then there's also, the way you do stuff, which is sort of like routine, but like, for instance, if you would usually just go to somewhere and help, volunteer, for instance, you help, but it's not really willingly. You could do that, or you could break out of it and say, hey, instead of me not doing it willingly, how about I go and make the best of it?
I see. So it's not just break out of routine, break out of your attitude.
Yeah.
In other words, you're doing something and it's great, and you like that routine, but if you're doing it just because I have to,
yeah,
then there's like an Egypt in your attitude. You have to break out of that and say, you know what? I'm not doing this because I have to. I'm doing this because it's really amazing. I should be doing this. I want to do it. I actually never thought of that. I'm always thinking about breaking out of Egypt as like behavioral stuff. Like I'm doing this, that, and the other. Break out of it. Do a little bit more. Right? The Talmud tells us about there was these places that used to rent out donkeys. I guess the modern version is renting cars, but they used to rent out donkeys. And the standard was that, let's say it was $5 for, I don't know, making up a number, but $5 to go 10 miles. But if you went 11 miles, it was $10. The extra mile was cost the same much as the first 10, because the donkeys were trained to go 10 miles. And then as soon as you do the extra mile, now you got to pay double, right? So there's this idea of even if you're doing a little bit more than you always do, it
means double.
That's right, because you're breaking out of everything. But you're adding another angle here, which is breaking out of a negative attitude.
Yeah.
Even if your behavior stays the same, but you change your attitude, and now you're actually freer.
Yeah.
Before you were,
You're sort of you're trapped into mindset. Your mindset is, I'm gonna go home, do this, help my mom. I don't want to do it, but I have to.
Right.
You could do that, or you can. It's gonna be a mitzvah regardless. You're still doing something good.
Right.
But you would much rather enjoy it, because when you enjoy it, you could do more of it. So if your mom says, "Could you help me?" and you say, "Okay," and you do it, but you're doing it unwillingly, so it's not really, you're not gaining anything. When you do it sort of more willingly and more okay, I'll do it with a good attitude, you're changing your attitude, and you're basically making the person you're doing it feel good about it, because they're not feeling this person has to do it. You're making them sort of feel like it's...
Right, so by changing the attitude, you actually get more accomplished in what you're doing.
Yeah. And you're not only helping yourself, you're helping others, because maybe they could see you smiling while doing it, and they'll be like, oh, that looks like it's something fun to do.
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
Right, so changing your attitude about something you already do, like using an example, helping your mother, right? So you come home and you've always been helping your mother, but sometimes you've been doing it out of just because you have to, out of a sense of duty, and you didn't really enjoy it. And then you break out of that attitude. You come home and you're like, I really want to help out. I'm doing this because I want to. So now, first of all, you're freer because you're enjoying yourself. You're impacting somebody else, because the person who asked you, let's say your mother in this case, doesn't feel like she's forcing you. She actually is happier to be asking you to do it because you're into it, because you broke out of that attitude. So not just,
for instance, if your mom helps you to clean her car, clean the snow off her car, and you do it okay, maybe the neighbor can see it and be like, oh, it looks like it's so boring, Or if you're like this, like smiling, maybe you could say, oh, it's so, or he or she could say like, oh, it looks so fun, like why can't I do this? And sort of,
so that's a ripple effect. When people see you doing something with good attitude, they'll actually learn from your behaviors and want to do what you're doing because you're doing it in a good attitude.
sort of feed off of what you're showing.
Right. That's a real freedom because you're actually happy in this stuff you're doing. That's when you're talking about going out of Egypt, becoming free. That really is a real freedom.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So there's another element to this. When we pray, we daven. We're always talking about Egypt. If you realize that. Mekiddush, Zechetzit Mitzrayim. Remember Egypt. Always Egypt. Every mitzvah we do is always Egypt. And the reason why we're obsessed with this, at least one of the reasons, is because when you push your limits and you change your attitude, you free yourself up, you're always going to be stuck in the fact that you're a human being. That's the last limitation you can ever break out of.
Of course.
Except for if God gives you the opportunity to break out of that.
Yes.
And that's what the mitzvah is. Essentially what mitzvahs are is God saying, okay, you're a human being, but you do that act, that's a godly act. So now you are bigger than just yourself. So you're
basically changing, you're not really morphing, but like you're basically putting yourself above what your expectations are, and sort of doing something above what you could have been doing.
That's right. You become bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
Even though you stay the same you, right? But because you are, and that's what we're constantly talking about, taking us out of Egypt, because every mitzvah that we do is a kind of going out of Egypt. Before we did the mitzvah, it was just me, little guy, and now I do the mitzvah, I'm not me, little guy. I'm me representing God. Wow. Now I'm much bigger than me. So every mitzvah is this kind of Egypt, where you're stuck in an Egypt, where it's just little you doing your thing, and then now you're something bigger, something greater.
Sort of amount to bigger things.
Yeah, right. So your actions are much more valuable than just you. They're much bigger than you, and then you become more valuable than just you. Right? Because my value is one thing, but then when my value is based on what I'm doing in response to God's request, so now my value is not based on me, but based on God, who's requesting that I do these things.
Exactly.
So I'm like way bigger than myself. Right? The example is given, and we were talking about attitude before. Understanding this also helps with your attitude in doing mitzvahs. And when you think of mitzvahs in this way, they don't become a burden anymore.
Of course.
They're much more exciting because each one's an opportunity to transcend and become bigger than yourself. So the example is like, if there's a king, and he's this really big king, and the greater he is, and the more you know about how great he is, and he goes down the street and he sees this guy lying in like the dumpster, and goes to him and says, "Come with me," gives him a hug, gives him a kiss, brings him to the house, gets him a clean shower, gives him a clean meal, and sits him down and says, "Let's have a chat. I want to talk to you." And that's really what a mitzvah is. God, however far this great king is to that guy in the dumpster, me and God are even farther apart.
Yeah.
But then God comes to you and says, okay, let me take you out of your little Egypt. Here, take these mitzvahs.
Yeah.
Right? So now, like you were saying before, first of all, the act of the mitzvah makes you bigger than yourself, but that attitude, knowing this, your attitude towards all the mitzvahs you have to do are now so much more full of life because you appreciate what they mean.
Yeah.
And how it serves making you bigger than just who you are.
Exactly. And so basically by doing a mitzvah, you're taking yourself out of your comfort zone. Like, to summarize it, by doing a mitzvah, it's like a process. You're in Egypt, right?
Right.
And then you're in Egypt, and God, who comes to you and not physically come, but sort of gives you something. It's like he's rewarding you with something that you could have not been rewarded with. And he's sort of giving you a privilege. You're saying, do it. You're making yourself a bigger person. You're inspiring others.
Yeah.
You're turning yourself into a much bigger person.
Yeah.
And not only you, many other people.
Right.
And you're so now you're in Egypt, and you're basically, once God tells you that and you're processing it, or spiritually telling you that, you're sort of splitting the sea then, and then you're splitting the sea, engaging, processing, And then once you actually...
Okay, so you're adding the analogy of splitting the sea in that splitting the sea is kind of internally I'm opening myself up to the ideas and processing this information.
Exactly.
It's good. I like that.
And then, so after that, you're doing the mitzvah, which is you basically walking through the sea. You're taking everything in.
So you open up, process that information that God's granting you. Now go into it.
Yeah. Okay. And now that you're doing it, it's not like a thought like, oh, should I do it or not? It's you're doing it, so you can't really go back. And then once you've completed, once you've done it, you're a bigger person. It's sort of like the Jews crossed the sea, and now they
become the people who can get the Torah at Sinai.
Yeah.
Did you just think of that yourself?
Yeah.
You didn't read that anywhere? That's awesome. So let me go through this again. So you're in Egypt. You're just your little self.
Mm-hmm.
God comes to you and says, okay, look, I'm giving you the opportunity to get out of Egypt, to become bigger than just your little life.
Yeah.
So you open up, splitting the sea, process all the information. Oh my gosh, God's coming to me and offering me this whole thing. I got to get into that. Mm-hmm. So you go into the sea. You're getting into that. And then when you come out of that experience, with that whole thing, now you're standing face to face with God at Sinai.
Exactly.
I'm God's man.
Yeah. So you're lifting yourself.
Awesome. I like going into this. I was just going the analogy of going out of Egypt and breaking out of becoming bigger than you are. Mm-hmm. But that whole storyline, I had not thought of, and that's really, really cool. I'm actually impressed. You should be a rabbi. Okay. I mean, yes, not kidding, but that was very impressive. I like that.
Thank you.
I'm going to use that in my classes. Hope you don't mind.
Everything?
I'll quote you. I promise.
It's all good.
That's good. So this is really everything. In every mitzvah, you can be doing this. You can really be experiencing this, right? Mm-hmm. For example, tefillah. Actually, one of the things you're supposed to be thinking about is that God took us out of Egypt. So I guess you can go through that whole thing in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a mitzvah. Here's a tefillah. Here's an opportunity to connect. It makes me bigger than me. Open up to it. Splitting the sea. Get into it. Engage in the tefillah. Now that I'm wearing it, I'm standing in front of God at Sinai. And every mitzvah is the same experience. At Kiddush, we're mentioning God's name. We're going into Shabbos. It's an experience. It's an opportunity to become bigger than myself. Open up to the Shabbos. Let the Shabbos come in. Me experience it, and then I'm standing as God's man at Sinai. And every mitzvah really had that experience, right? Which gives you more depth to the fact that we're constantly talking about Egypt, the Exodus from Egypt. Every day we mention the splitting of the sea, right? During our prayer.
Exactly.
At least 10 times a day we make mention of Egypt. Yeah. And prayers mention Egypt, and Shema we mention Egypt, and we're constantly talking about Egypt. And with this whole understanding the narrative and how every mitzvah essentially is a small part leaving Egypt, going through the sea experience, now you know why we're talking about this story the whole time.
Mm-hmm. So it's basically, it has to connect with everything.
Right. And we're always in the process of going out of Egypt, because you can always appreciate this deeper and deeper. So if I appreciate now how much the mitzvah means in terms of making me bigger than I am, and how important it is for God that I do it, and therefore I become bigger than myself, I can appreciate on a deeper level, or another way of putting it is I can understand it, but then I can feel it, right? And then I can feel that more and more and more. So you're constantly in this process of getting out of Egypt on a deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper level.
Exactly.
Right. So it's not like, okay, you're out of Egypt, now you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you have your new attitude, you have your new comfort zone, and now you got to move out of that. Yeah. So you're constantly in this process of going out of Egypt as you grow in your learning, in your Judaism and all that.
Exactly.
Amazing. I love it. See, I learned something.
Something to think of when you want to do a mitzvah and you're like, oh no, it's too much.
Right. Remember that Egypt model.
Mm-hmm.
Splitting the sea, going in the sea, and then Sinai. Love it. It's a great episode.